that. So I've followed through all the challenge,
We are losing
all the
that.
tasks.
Okay.
Sir?
We are losing you at some points, Emmanuel. Can you can come? Okay. All right, you can speak on, please.
A better network somewhere else. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you can speak on.
I think the network is very bad, but can you hear me now?
Yeah, this is perfect now. Perfect now.
Okay. So I was saying the challenge to project the sustainability gospel not only online but also offline. Prior to now, I usually do not share. I just practice it personally and maybe with my within my household. I would say it's just my family that used to know that I was conscious about the environment. But this challenge now, it's everywhere on my social media. It's on my LinkedIn, man, Twitter. Then in person, I also speak to people one-on-one. I mean, it's been really insightful. It's been really impactful for me. Thank you.
Amazing. We are so glad to hear that, Emmanuel. We don't know if there is any other person that will also want to share feedback as regards how the challenge has really impacted you. What are the new things you've learned over the course of the week? And till now, what are those things that you've adopted in your daily lifestyle? Okay, I can see some people on the call, but I don't know if there is anyone that wants to go again. I would love we have a female. Can we have a female so that we know that we have a male and a female gender balance? Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you for the wonderful feedback, Emmanuel. I can see Mr. Femi connecting earlier and it's off the call again. Okay, it's back online now. Thank you very much, Mr. Femi, for joining and keep it to time. I would just like to, at this point, hand over to our powerful moderator for today in person of Madam Shia Bolaim. I know you are going to come to me for this, but yeah, definitely. And she is the social media manager for Softy Vibes, one of official partner in this ECO30 Sustainable Living Challenge. Over to you, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. Good evening and happy Earth Day. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for the introduction. So my name is Sheyi Agbola, and like you said, I'm the social media manager for Softy Vibes. So at Softy Vibes, we understand that young people are the key to sustainability, and we try to break down sustainability in the language that they will understand. So we are making sustainability cool and relatable for young people. And I'm really excited to meet everyone, and I'm really excited to learn today. So we just get right into it, right? We have two amazing guests, as I'm sure you can see on your screen, and I'll just start by reading their bios. And I'll just start with the bio of Mr. Femi. So Femi Oyeni is a climate-smart agriculture enthusiast and advocate with a bent for developing adaptable, suitable models for specific agroecological zones. He trained as an agriculturist at the Olabisi Onabanjo University, specializing in animal science for his master's degree at the University of Ibadan, where he's also pursuing a doctoral degree in the same discipline. He has 8 years of practical experience in developing sustainable integrated crop livestock farming initiative. His work is focused on SDGs 2 and 13, both of which are significant enablers of realizing the remaining 15 Sustainable Development Goals. As an active researcher, he has a good number of publications in peer-reviewed journals, in addition to participating in academic and specialized business conferences. He currently serves as the program officer and the network manager for the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. And he also lectures at the ECO30 State College of Agriculture and Technology. His research focus is on climate change adaptation and mitigation. He's a recipient of the Tony Elumelu Foundation grant, SOM, with which he has designed anaerobic biodigesters. He has also utilized several donor funds to help in contributing to climate change mitigation in Nigeria. Can I just see you drop some clapping emojis for Mr. Femi? This bio is pretty impressive, and I'm really looking forward to learning from him. So please just give him a clap, a thumbs up, your favorite emoji to welcome him today. And I'll move on to reading the bio of our second speaker, Mrs. Jumoke Olowo-Kere. And I really like the way she named herself on the meeting as Olowo. That's really inspiring. So Jumoke Olowo-Kere is an ecopreneur with over 10 years experience in the education sector, both in the public and private institutions, locally and internationally. Jumoke is a graduate of the University of Ibadan, where she bagged her first and second degrees, and she is passionate about enlightening and engaging children and adults in the best practices around waste management, recycling, and upcycling. She has partnered with several companies in planning their corporate social responsibility events, and she's the initiator of the PP40 Waste to Playground, an initiative for 40 public primary schools in Ibadan, Oyo State. She's the creative director at the African Creative Sustainable Synergy Hub, and she's the founder of the Waste Museum, the first in Africa to showcase circular economy of zero waste, plants, animals, and humans. With over 10 years of experience, Jumoke has grown her own backyard garden and trains women and children on organic backyard garden using waste beds, cement bags, containers, tires, plastic bottles, hydroponics, and vertical gardening in small spaces. Through this initiative, over 2,500 homes now grow their own organic backyard garden, harvesting fresh chemical-free herbs, fruits, veggies, eating and living a healthier lifestyle with their families since COVID-19. Wow, that's so inspiring. Thank you so much and welcome again, Mrs. Adejumoke. Please, can we also drop some clapping emojis for her? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so these bios are pretty interesting. And like I said, I don't know many times I said, but I'm really looking forward to learning. And that's the truth. But I mean, I'll just like to ask our guests a few questions because your bio says a lot about you professionally. I'd love to get to know you like just a little bit more. So Mrs. Jumoke, I'm going to put you on the spot and I just want to ask you a simple question. And what do you do to relax? What do you do for fun when you are not, doing all these other amazing things with the Waste Museum and beyond? Okay, can someone confirm if you can hear me in the comment box, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right, so I guess while we wait for Mrs. Jumoke, I'm just going to move on to you, Mr. Femi. And I mean, you mentioned that you do love both SDGs 2 and 3, and I'd just like to ask you why. Can you just tell us why you love those SDGs, like in your own words?
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Abola. Please, am I audible enough?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you once again. And I want to extend my greetings as well to the organizers of this meeting and the distinguished audience here with us. Okay, to zoom in on the question, I love that perhaps because of my background. So as has been mentioned earlier, I have a background in agricultural sciences. And of course, you know, food is something that is very important to our existence as humans. So that explains why SDG2 is a big thing for me. And as for SDG13, we know that in the process of trying to put up food, essentially food comes through crop production or animal production. There's so much to be done afterwards. So from farm to fork, it's quite a long distance. But then the first is the farm. And so we know that the environment impacts negatively on agriculture, and agriculture also impacts negatively on the environment. So finding a way to strike a healthy balance has been, for me, a question I've been trying to provide answers to. And that explains why SDG 13 comes into the picture. SDG 13 talks about climate action. So that pretty much explains why SDGs 2 and 13 respectively are the key SDGs I like to work on and have been doing for the last couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Femi. That's really nice to hear. I do agree. Whether we like it or not, everybody has to eat, and it's important that we protect our food sources. Okay, so I don't think Mrs. Okay, she's back now. Mrs. Adejumoke, please, can you hear us now? Okay, so while we're waiting, we'll just go straight.
Hello,
okay.
I think I'm having network issues.
Yes.
Did you say something to me?
Yes, before the network cut you off, I was talking about your bio, and I want to say that I was really inspired. And I just had a question for you, and that's just how do you relax? What are your favorite activities to just have fun and relax? You know, after all hard work at the Waste Museum and every other thing.
To relax, what do? I read. I dance. I watch movies. What else? I sleep. When I'm not working, I'm sleeping. But if I want to relax, maybe if I have meetings with my friends, I can go to my friends and they will we'll catch up on happenings. I browse on Pinterest. I watch YouTube videos. That's how I relax. I also go to dance classes. I dance. Yeah, that's how I relax.
That's very nice to know. Honestly, it's the sleeping for me. I think that's the best. But we love the topic for today. Please give me 1 second. Is transformation towards sustainable and resilient future, the challenges, the opportunities, and the way forward. And like I said, through our work at Sustainability, we like to break down all these concepts so it doesn't just look like big grammar to us. So before we start, I would just like to share definitions in my own opinion, and also a combination of Google/my opinion on the 3 major words that were mentioned in this. And the first one is transformation. And transformation simply means transforming something. I just use the same word. But basically changing something from one state to another state. And the transformation can either be positive or it can be negative. And, sustainable is simply something that can stand the test of time, something that is not one use, that can be used repeatedly without it being depleted. So you know what they will say, it's what you can use today and would not affect the future generation. From Google, I saw that it's something that can be defended. And I think that's really, nice. And the final word is resilience. And this word, I think this word best describes Nigerians. No matter what happens, it's kind of like an audacious spirit or like an audacious vibes, the ability to bounce back. And with everything that's happening, with climate change, we have already done irreparable damage. So now we have to be resilient, to some extent. Anyway, so in my opinion, I think those are definitions of the three major words. So you can keep that at the back of your mind. And I hope that has helped you to better understand the topic. Okay, so the first question I have for both Mrs. Jumoke and Mr. Femi is that the phrase sustainable future, like I said, can seem very complex and it can seem so multifaceted. So can you please just help us break it down in your own perspective? And I'll start with Mr. Femi.
Thank you, Ms. Shea. On the lighter mood, I wonder
Our network is really doing a thing on us today. Okay, I think Mr. Femi is back. Okay, so are you free to can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you. I was actually I was trying to make my contribution when I got logged.
Okay.
Don't blame me, blame the technology. Yeah, that's on the lighter mood. But then again, still on the lighter mood, I wonder why the supposedly hard questions are put right in front of me, and the simpler ones are put in front of my colleague. Yeah, but it's okay. So, yep, I feel that sustainable development and a common future are like two ends of same coin. And so when we talk about sustainable development, I think we should be talking about us making the right choices so as not to jeopardize the future. And when we talk about the future is not just 30 years, even though it is in a sense, but then the future is also tomorrow. The future is also next week. The future is also the next year.
Hi, Mr. Femi. So we can't hear you again. Okay, so while we wait for Mr. Femi, I'll just shoot the question also to you, Mrs. Jumoke. And I'll just repeat the question. When we say sustainable future, it can seem really complex, but how would you explain it in your own words? From your own perspective? Okay.
Can you hear me now, please?
Okay, yes. Sorry.
Sorry, am I audible now?
Yes, you are. You can go ahead.
I'm really sorry. I'll just try and recap. So I was saying that when we talk about sustainable development and we talk about the common future, they are like two ends of the same coin. Because essentially sustainable development, as you rightly mentioned in this short definition, says how are we using today's resources so well, such that we don't jeopardize tomorrow. So when we talk about sustainable development, on one hand, we have development. Development in itself is like a building, okay? So we are making efforts on a constant basis, okay? But we want to ensure that that effort is something that will not destroy, that will not be destructive, will not be counterproductive. Okay, so when we talk about sustainability,
Hi, Mr. Femi.
I'm really I really don't know what is happening this evening. I've been trying to ensure that the network is not an hindrance, but it appears it's just coming up with its challenges. I'll try and make my presentation brief. Essentially, sustainable development is about making investments and the right kind of investments. Okay, so in simple terms, this has to do with us making choices. And making choices is not as simple as it appears, because we have to make choices with good information. And unfortunately, we don't always know all that there is to know. So sustainable development, in my own definition and in a simple language for everyone to relate with, would mean taking steps on a daily basis to ensure that tomorrow is well secured, not just for us, but for everyone. And when we talk about everyone, we are talking about not just human beings, we are talking about all living things. So we're talking about animals, we are talking about plants, we are talking about the planet itself. For now, the planet Earth is still the only planet that is habitable for organisms. Even though I know that there's space exploration, and so it's been moves are being made for people to live in Mars and all of that. But as we speak, the Earth is still where people can live. So how we can protect the planet Earth, how we can also work together with others to promote a planet that is peaceful and habitable for all in the next 100, 1,000, God knows how many years to come. So that's it from my end. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Femi. I mean, you mentioned that you see development as like a building, and every day it's like a building that, you know, we keep building every day. I mean, I think of it like a skyscraper, like a skyscraper, and, you know, we keep adding to it, we keep adding to it, we keep adding to it, we keep building ourselves every day. Okay, so that's perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Femi. So, sorry. So over to you, ma'am, Mrs. Okay.
Okay, well, sustainable development in my own simple English simply means taking decisions every day and thinking the decision through, asking ourselves each time we want to make any decision, how does it affect the other person? How does it affect the environment? That is, the two basic elements, which is the humans and the environment that makes up our world. Whatever decision we take, asking ourselves, this decision I'm making in my space, how does it affect my neighbor? How does it affect my environment? That is simply what I take sustainable development to be. Because if we all have this consciousness of making decisions and not just thinking about ourselves, thinking about our neighbor, thinking about the environment, and thinking about the animals that is in our space. You know, the three basic elements that we have in our space that is living that we need to take care of. You know, when we take it back to the foundation of the earth, when God created the world, He created the plants, He created the animals. So the plants are staying in the environment, the animals are staying in the environment, and then He created humans that is also staying in the environment. And then He handed over to the human and said, go and dominate, go and take care, go and nurture, and use this for food and for herbs. So when we are in our individual space, every decision, every one of us wake up every day and we take 1 million decisions. Now, each decision that we take every day, once we get to that point where we ask ourselves, how does this decision affect my environment? How does it affect my neighbor? And how does it affect the animals in my environment? That is what it means to think about sustainability and to grow. Every day we are growing in our thinking, in our decision making, we grow. So in that growth, when we can incorporate asking that question, then that is my own definition of sustainable development. And we grow in leaps and bounds. I remember one of the students here was trying to give us the feedback. He said initially when he was talking about sustainability and circular economy, he was doing it only in his own space and for himself and for his family. He said, but now all over his social media, everywhere he's talking about it. So it means that he's growing, and his growth is sustainable. Why? Because now his growth is no longer for himself. His growth is now for the society. His growth is now for his neighbor. His growth is now for the environment. His growth is now for the planet. That's how I relate it. I hope I've not been talking to myself, Sha.
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you for like the last 3 seconds, but I heard you for the most part, and I think that's the perfect definition. Because how we've come here as a planet is as a result of someone just thinking, and then their thoughts, they didn't think their thoughts through. They didn't think about the sustainability of their thoughts. And I mean, that's where we are today. And if we're going to change it, we're going to have to use our minds to also think positively and think about how everything affects us all. So I got you for the most part. So thank you so much for sharing, Ma.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Mr. Femi, the next question is for you. When we're reading your bio and when we're speaking just now, you spoke about the Sustainable Development Goals. You said, particularly the ones you are interested in, that's goal 2 and 13. And you also mentioned that, this ends up linking to all the other goals. And just like the theme of today, we do need to transform towards a sustainable and a resilient future. So what would you say are a few feasible ways of solving? Okay, let me just ask, what are some of the challenges you think are facing sustainable development, and how can we solve them so we can have the sustainable and resilient future that we do need?
Oh, thank you so much. That's a very big question, and I'm wondering how I should best try to answer that question, but then I will make an attempt anyway. So I think to begin with, we need to find a way of building a culture of trust. And I want to place an emphasis on the word build, which means it's not a one-time thing, it's a continuous effort that we need to keep making. And why is that so? So we are different as humans in terms of our temperament, in terms of our perspective, in terms of our background, social status, our personality, our educational attainment or achievement, you could go on and on. Okay, so what does this mean? This means we view things in different ways. So if we are talking about how to overcome the challenges to sustainable development, which you rightly said are complex, and that's really what it is. So we need to find a way of building a culture of trust. And by building a culture of trust, that means that no one knows it all. So whatever solution we're going to be evolving or proposing, we need to find a way to carry as many people along. As a matter of fact, the motto of the Sustainable Development Goals captures it succinctly. It says, leaving no one behind. So we don't want to leave anyone behind, regardless of creed, regardless of gender, regardless of tribe, regardless of race. So either you're talking to a Negro, or sorry for using the word, either you're talking to someone who is from Africa, from Asia, from the North America, South America, any continent, whatever solution you are proposing, you want to see that is context specific. And the word context specific is because one solution in a part of the world may not always be applicable in another in its direct form. So methodologies will differ. As a matter of fact, we may even agree on a particular mode or a particular solution, but the method of deploying it. And so when we made a decision and we said, this is the direction we want to go, the method could also present a challenge. And so we need some form of humility in order to be to get as many people as possible to go with us. And I would like to say this lastly, while we may not get everyone to be on the same page, we can get an overwhelming majority to be on our side when we are advocating solutions or developing solutions. And I think that's really the way to go when solving any challenge. I'm sorry that my answer was really broad, but I wanted to find a way of touching as many things as possible. Maybe my colleague would help to bring a little bit of specificity into this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Femi. And I do think that was the perfect answer. Because the truth is, everybody, no matter which language they're speaking, understand that, say, for instance, our climate is not the way it used to be. So let's say I want to speak to an average market woman, about climate change, and I go and tell them, can't you see that the glaciers are melting, the snow is this, the polar bears are dying, there are so many endangered species? And she's like, please, what are you saying? But when you bring it down to something that they can understand and say, oh, why do you think rain is falling? You know, I mean, when rain is not supposed to be falling. I know earlier in Lagos, I think February and March, there was a sudden wave of harmattan that just came back, you know, that shouldn't normally be. That is something that she can experience, and that way she's able to understand it. Okay. So, I'll just move on to the next question for Mrs. Jumoke. And, you know, Mrs. Jumoke has a lot of experience, over 10 years of experience working in the sustainability field. So, I mean, many people here are looking to grow themselves, you know, in sustainability as a climate advocate and all that. And what do you think are some of the challenges that we might encounter on that journey of building a sustainable future?
Challenges are part of the journey. And I think that even what gives the journey flavor, because I can imagine a journey without any challenges and everything is just going smooth. You may even get bored and sleep off on the journey. There are different challenges that I have experienced personally in this journey. And the first major challenge is people not willing to change, or people not even believing what we are talking about, or people thinking, oh, when you're saying climate change, when you're saying all this big drama, glacier and all that, just like what you said now, is for some particular set of countries or for the white people. It's not our problem here in Nigeria. We don't have that problem here in Africa. It's an Oyibo thing, kind of. So people's mentality, and I think people's mentality is as a result of their knowledge, the information they have at hand concerning this. So in my own experience, the first major challenge is mentality, people's mentality of not wanting to change, being used to a particular way of doing things and not willing to change. We experience that on a daily basis. Another challenge is maybe lack of implementation of laws and rules, you know, by the government, you know, this inadequacy, or not even thinking, realizing that you are on your own. And this inadequacy or feeling like as if what you're doing doesn't even make much impact. Because, for example, let me give you a typical example. Okay, you think, oh, a particular sport, maybe there's a landfill there and it's dangerous to the people in that environment. And so you did a mobilization, you went into the neighborhood there, sensitization programs, you talk to them about the dangers of what they are doing and how it is dangerous to them. And then you raise volunteers and you did the cleanup. After educating the community that you left your own community very far to that space. So then you came to their community, you educate them on their community, you show them all the things, you know, that is wrong with the way they're doing. And then you clean up. And the following day you come back, and what you just cleaned up yesterday, you met it back as if you did not clean it up yesterday. You know, that can be very discouraging. And it looks like as if you just wasted your time. But, you know, when you see these challenges, one thing we always decide is that our target is not 1 million people. Our target is not 20 people. If we do a cleanup, or we do an awareness program, or we do an advocacy program, and you are able to speak to 100 people, and out of that 100 people, you're able to get 5 or 10 that will be willing to change, then that is like, you know, a pass mark for us. That is, you know, those are the things that we look for. We know that 100 people will not change immediately, but we are willing to say, okay, if we can achieve 10 people from that community changing, 5 people from that community changing, then at least we are making progress. So that is also, you know, a very major challenge of feeling like as if you are wasting your time or wasting your efforts because people are not willing to change. Another major challenge that we faced in this journey is logistics and, you know, inadequacies of companies that are supposed to actually be using, you know, some of these waste or some of these major problems or pollutants that we have in our society. And people's attitudes are not changing in the fact that people are still buying, they're still disposing, they're still, you know, wasting lots of materials. So you still realize that you still have a loads of materials hanging around, piling up, and it looks like as if there's no solution. But just like what I said, for every time we go out, for every time we reach out to people, if it is one, if it is five, if it is 10, then we look at it as, progress in this path.
Thank you so much, Ma. I completely agree. It's a daily journey, and I feel like that's why we need more and more people. So you can reach 5 people, I can reach 5, someone can reach 1. I mean, for Christians, it's like the parable of it's like that parable, where they give one this amount of talent, etc, etc. So I mean, we're rounding off, and today is Earth Day, and this year's theme is investing in our planet. And then the question now is, how can we invest in this planet to promote a sustainable and a resilient future, first as individuals and then for households? This question is for both of our guests, and we'll just start with Mr. Femi. And
Sorry, trying to unmute. Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity once again to attend to the question you just posed. So how do we protect the planet? And I think the reason for that is because for now, it's still the only inhabitable physical space where humans and other organisms can thrive for a reasonably long period of time without too much of modifications. That being said, how do we? We do that by adopting a lifestyle that is not injurious to the environment. I think that's the first place to start. I think they say charity begins at home. And so what that means is in our day-to-day life, how do we manage wastes? Because wastes are things we would naturally come in contact with on a daily basis. We eat, I mean, even speaking biologically, when we eat, there's something called waste products, right? Okay, so every other activity that we're involved in, apart from taking in food, washing of clothes, we have wastewater, for example, and all of that. How do we discard all of these? The nylons that we unpack from food, snacks, gift items, how do we sort out all of those things? I mean, that's in itself a big issue. I don't want to go into too much of details into that, but what I'm just trying to say is from as simple as living at home on a daily basis, how are we living sustainably? Okay. And then we move out to the bigger world. How do we share that knowledge or that habits with people? How do we share our experience, our day-to-day experience with people? Okay. Everyone has a circle of influence. So how do we let those within our circle of influence, even those outside our circle, colleagues, subordinates, superiors, people we meet just randomly, how do we share that with them? So I think for me, it's about promoting that culture of environmental accountability, I would want to say. And I want to even say this, that generally, when we live that life, somehow, without even having to say too much, even though we need to speak, 1, 2, 3, 4 persons we want to emulate us. So I recall back in my secondary school, it was a boarding house. The uniform we wore all through as boys was a white shirt and a white trouser, right from GS1 to SS3. And I must confess, there are people, even far back as GS1, that were sparkling clean as a GS1. As a GS1, I mean, you would want to be their friends. Even as a guy, as a boy, you would want to have them as friends. For me, that's sustainability. Without they coming to meet you, you are the one that wants to be their friends. So I'm just trying to scale that up, or to use that example as to how we can live our life so well in how we, in even our dealings, in even our conduct, such that we have this sense of environmental accountability. I keep finding that word recurring in my mind. So when I say environmental accountability, what I'm trying to say is how do we promote management of the systems that support life on Earth? For example, the ocean, the cloud. We know 70% of the world is made up of water. We may not all live in coastal cities in Nigeria. So for those living in the north, they don't have access to the ocean, but we all have access to water bodies. How do people living in rural areas? So regardless of whether we live in rural areas, semi-urban areas, urban areas, we would have access to water bodies, lakes, for example. How do people manage those things, for example? I mean, because they are found around us, even the land. How do people manage all of that? So I think for me, either we are business people, either we are academics, either we are working in NGO sector, or CSO, or faith-based organizations, or in government, we should find ways to promote that culture of environmental accountability, and that should begin with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Femi. I mean, there's this quote that says, people can forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So if you are consistently, living out, the trusty lifestyle, like you said, even before you have to speak, people are going to be drawn to you. They're going to want to know why, and they're going to want to know how. Okay, so over to you, Mrs. Jumoke. Based on the theme of today's Earth Day, Invest in Our Planet, how would you link it up to the topic, building a sustainable and resilient future?
When you look at all this building a sustainable and resilient future, and with the theme of what did you say the theme of the Earth Day is again?
The theme is invest in our planet.
Oh, investing in our planet is something that we humans have to do consciously. When you look at the issues we're having now, humans are the major contributor to all the problems and all the challenges that we're having today. Like I always say at the Waste Museum, I said, the plants are generating waste, we all know. But the waste of the plants are not dangerous to the environment. The animals are generating their own waste too. It's limited, the kind of damage they do to the environment. But when you look at the pollutions that we see, all the major hazard we are experiencing today, humans are the major determinants. Humans are the major contributors. And if humans are the major contributors, they have to live up to that consciousness of finding solution. And just like my colleague said, Dr. Femi said right here, that it is a lifestyle. And it's a lifestyle that we must not only live for ourselves and by ourselves, we must also teach others. We must show others. We must make sure that whoever come in contact with us never leave the same way they have come. And they leave us and, take something from us. It is not something that we can fake. It is something that we have to live, genuinely. And building, a sustainable lifestyle, investing in the earth is not something that you will do on holidays. There was a time I was discussing with some people, and I said, many people that are talking about environment, talking about circular economy, talking about sustainability, they're just talking. You're not putting action to your words. And what do I mean by that? I said, you have a company, you're talking about sustainability, you're talking about environment, and then you have an event. And your own event is contributing to the problem that you're trying to solve. I read somewhere that while they were doing the COP26 event, many of the cars that were at the parking space were left running. So imagine hundreds of cars left up till today. If you go to high-profile meetings, go to the car parks, you will see many of the so-called cars and AC cars being left running. Is that not part of the problem we're talking about that's contributing to the climate change? Now, you see companies that are talking about sustainability, they have an event, and they will do an event, and they will also contribute a lot of waste. They're not thinking sustainability in their action. And then they want to buy gifts and souvenir. Then they will go to China and import souvenir and be part of the problem. Now, we must begin to walk the talk. We must move from the level of just talking about it to actually taking conscious step. In my journey in this part, I realized that taking sustainable decisions most of the time requires planning, requires special thing. You know, if I have an event now and I did not think about it much, I did not plan it much, I can just take my money, go to the market, buy all the disposable plate I want, buy all the plates and buy, you know, just buy everything, buy, purchase and buy. And then if I'm not thinking beyond that, I will buy all those things. After my event, they become another problem. Then they add to the problem. But if I only take a little moment to think and plan and say, okay, what can we do? I remember when we wanted to do the opening of the Waste Museum, and we're talking about this. And because we wanted to walk the talk, I called my team and I said, we have an event and we're going to spend more than 3 hours. We're going to be serving our guests. And if we say we are the Waste Museum, we must not contribute waste by our event. So what can we do? So we started thinking, we started exploring, and guess what? We came up with a bamboo cup. We wanted to serve drinks. We wanted to serve food. And so we said, okay, we're going to use leaves. We're going to use leaves to serve the food. And we're going to place it on a paper plate so that when they are done eating, it can be composted because we have a compost pit. And then, okay, we said, so what are we going to do with the cups? Are we going to use disposable cups? We said, no. So we spent extra minutes, extra time to create bamboo cups. Guess what? During the event, people saw the bamboo cups. They loved it to the extent that they finished drinking and they put the cups in their bag instead of giving it back to us to be able to reuse. And so they took it home and they started using it from the house. Now, if it was plastic cup we used, it wouldn't have cost us thinking too much, planning ahead. We would have just gone to the market and buy the disposable cup. So my own angle is, if we are talking it, we must walk it. We must not just be talking. Our lifestyle must show it. And we cannot go on holiday. 24 hours, we must be walking the talk.
Thank you so much for sharing. And that's so inspiring. And I do agree with you that the sustainable lifestyle is not for holidays, it's an everyday thing. And it really requires being intentional. So as we're rounding off, if you have any questions for our guest, please drop them in the comment section now. And we'll just move on to the last question. We only have about, let's say, 5 minutes more. So the last question is, there's a lot of things that we can learn from, other developed countries and the way they've been able to use their waste positively. So could you please just share, like an example of something that would be the benefit of us actually investing, like we said, in our future? What are the opportunities? What are the benefits? If you have any, reference to what we can learn from this country. So if we could just do that briefly for each of our guests in like 30 seconds each. Okay, so I see Mr. Femi is already unmuted, so you can go ahead.
All right, thank you so much. I would just say we should try to promote a culture of learning. I think I mentioned that. I don't know why it keeps repeating itself. So I'll just use the case of Stanford University as an example. And I'm sorry, but you can understand why I'm using an academic institution as an illustration. So I'm using that to talk about unicorn startups. These are startups that have grown to become $1 billion company. Either you talk about Apple or you mention Facebook and what have you. So everyone knows about Silicon Valley. I just want to talk about how Silicon Valley came to be. Okay, so there's a professor, I can't recall the name exactly now, who felt that what would happen when students graduate of Stanford University? Is it just to go the way of every other graduates by seeking for jobs. Why can't they become employers of labor? So they have
Say hi, Mr. Femi. Yes, your network cut off. We couldn't hear you for like the past 10 seconds.
Oh, I was talking about Silicon Valley and how it came to be. How a professor in the University of in Stanford University encouraged alumni of that particular university to come set up at that university, have close access to experts who could help them to hone whatever skill they have acquired, and then they could build an enterprise. Okay, so relating that to a context in Nigeria, I would say space is just the average young person. So we've heard about NSAS and then several other things. In fact, just the recently held elections, we heard about protest votes from youth. And what's the average youth really asking for? Not for so much, but for a good enabling environment. So for me, I think we need to find a way to speak to those in power. And when I say those in power, we actually all in power. We all have power. Either it's soft power, either it's delegated power, either it's the power the electorate have with which they can decide to elect whoever. We all have one kind of power. Let's exercise that power and find a way to ensure that our environment is good for entrepreneurs to thrive. For me, I think entrepreneurs are key to driving any economy. And talking about development, long-lasting development, largely needs entrepreneurs to come and play in that space. So for me, that's key: safe and thriving environment.
Thank you so much, Mr. Femi. I love that you mentioned learning. We all have to keep learning, and you can never stop learning. You can never know everything in the world. And it's always good that we learn, like you said, from the examples of the Silicon Valley on how we can, promote sustainability. Okay, so over to you, Ma.
Well, I just wanted to say there's a culture that I hope we can all emulate, and that is the culture of segregation. I think what all the things we're talking about starts from there. If we can learn, simply in our spaces, in our homes, in our organizations, in our schools, wherever we find ourselves, to segregate, that will go a long way. Because in as much as we are all still putting all our waste together in one box, we are not making progress with it. But if we learn to segregate it, we learn to sort it out, put the boxes together, put the plastics together, put the food waste together, then we'll begin to ask ourselves, now that I've sorted it, what can I do with it? Then it will not end up on the landfill and we are back to square one. So that's a culture that I hope and pray that one day in Nigeria, I will see it in every home, I'll see it in every school, I'll see it in every organization where we learn to sort. And once we learn to sort, we can hand it over to whoever, that can use this sorted waste in its form. So it is no longer refuse like usual, but now it becomes material.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing. And we are at the end of our session, and now we take questions. So if you have any questions for our guests, please drop them in the chat box now, or if you'd like to speak, you can raise your hand and we can do that briefly within the next 5 minutes. Yeah, so it's safe to assume that we've all had an amazing time learning. I mean, I've written so much, and most importantly, it's important that we do. Like Mrs. Jumoke mentioned, a lot of people are all talk. and like zero action. And like we also said, it's the little step that counts. It's the little efforts that count. Someone is watching you and you don't even know that, you know, you are switching things up for them. So, you know, aside from us talking, just pick one thing. Pick one thing and say, okay, this is the one thing that I am, you know, saying that, oh, I'm going to do this next week and beyond. Do you get? So I'll be handing over. It has been a really
We
nice
have
experience.
your hand up. Jeremiah's hand is up.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I did not see that. Okay, Jeremiah, please.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Jeremiah.
Yeah, it's been an interesting session. So, two questions I have, and like an observation. One is, how do one communicate this message of sustainability to people in other languages? So I've been having interest in doing advocacy or media on social media, but I've been looking at what is common is mostly in English language, and we have some people who, when you communicate to them in their language, they would vibe with it, and would like to also practicalize it. So, how can one get that like minds of people who can spread this message in other languages to people that are in rural areas or in urban areas? Then secondly, the area of waste segregation. I believe it's an infrastructure or institutional problem whereby people need to have double bins. So most times I see in some areas, some people burn their waste, and the smell of the burning will be entering into one's apartment. So I feel they need much orientation on the negative effects of burning their waste, while some people just have just one type of bin. Now, in the area of segregation, it means people need to have different type of waste bin where they can put different type of waste, and they will expect Loma or one recycling company to come and pick it up. So that's my observation and my question. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I think that's really good. If I could just speak on the first question, you know, about speaking in the language that people understand. I mean, when we say language, first of all, there's normal language, English, Yoruba, etc., etc. But language can also mean the way that I understand something. It may not require verbal speaking. Now, let's take, for instance, young people in Nigeria. I would say from my own experience as a young person in Nigeria, one language that resonates with me is money. So you are not speaking money and I don't have any money to give you. But when you say, for instance, we do essay competitions and ask people, oh, why don't you write about this sustainable? Why don't you think about solutions and write about this? And we're giving you money in return. That is something that is speaking to you without even speaking, you know, in where you are speaking English, but you are resonating with their minds. So, and then the other thing you want to show people is, how can I make money from this thing? How will I benefit from this thing? Like, say, that's where recycling comes in. And I know that there are lots of organizations that are coming up in Nigeria that are saying, okay, bring your waste and we're going to recycle them. Another way, you know, we can use money to talk is that we are saying, oh, the new wave in Nigeria is solar panels. Do you get? And then if you learn how to be like a solar panel installer, you can actually make money from it. Do you get? So I mean, that's an example of how we can talk without, you know, speaking a specific language. Now, that being said, sometimes we do need to speak a specific language, and that's why, Jeremiah, can I ask you where you're from? Okay, so I'm just going to assume, or I'll just use my own example. So my name is Sherry, and I am Yoruba. So one thing that you can determine that you are going to do when you leave this place is all these words. What does sustainable mean in my language? What does this particular word mean in my language? So far and so on. And then you can actually, like Mr. Femi mentioned about learning, you cannot compile all this information, put it out there so people can know. So when they want to talk to people, they have this background knowledge. Okay, so now
I wanted to add something, from my own personal experience. There's this thing about Louis Ali Joshi, that is, with love together we can. One person cannot do this project alone. And that is the reason why we are doing all these things that we're doing. I've been on the road all day. I had to park somewhere to be able to attend this meeting. Why do I have to stress myself? My kids are going back to school tomorrow. I have a lot of things I need to sort out this night. But I'm right inside the car, attending to this dialogue. Why? Because I want somebody somewhere to listen to us tonight and have a change of heart. Now, we cannot do it all together. I may not be the one that will translate these things into Yoruba or into Igbo but guess what? Just 2 days ago, somebody came to the museum and she came to interview me. And while she was interviewing me, she said, actually, what I'm doing now, you were the one that inspired me to start doing it. And I said, how? She said there was a conference that she attended and I was there. And I was saying, everybody's an artist and we all have our own part to play. That maybe you are there, you are here, you are seated and you can write, or you are here and you can speak. Everybody doesn't have to be doing recycling. Everybody doesn't have to be painting. You can be writing about climate change. You can be writing about environment. She said it was like as if I was talking to her in the audience. And that after the program, she came to meet me and I encouraged her to go and start using her skills of writing. And now she's doing, news editing. She's writing about sustainability. So it means that because she met me, she's been able to identify what she can do, what she can contribute. So we're hoping that if we keep on doing what we're doing, somebody that is very skilled in Yoruba, somebody that is very skilled in Hebrew will also one day get up and say, oh, I want to tell this to my people in Igbo, and I have this skill. Let me translate. March 18, when we're preparing for Global Recycling Day, we needed to go to the community. We wanted to do a trash on show, and we were doing it in a market. And we knew that the people in the market don't speak English. So what did we do? My team and I, we sat down and we started translating some of our placards into Yoruba. For example, we normally say 5 hours and a U: reduce, reuse, recycle, refuse, repair, and upcycle. We've been saying that for ages. But now we have to speak to Yoruba audience. We had to sit down and start brainstorming. And that was when we came up with DQ, reduce, reuse, too low. So we changed all our placards and we started writing DQ. So when the Yoruba speakers, when they see DQ, so when we got to the market, we're not telling them reduce. They don't know what it is. We started using what they understand. So in our own little way, even without us being Yoruba teachers or Yoruba professors, because we had a need for it, we were able to do that. So if somebody that is a very, a professional in Yoruba language and all that, and when they discover what we're doing and they buy into this project, they can dedicate, a whole booklet, a whole newsletter, a whole radio station. I've done a lot of interviews before in Yoruba and in English. And when there's the opportunity to do that, you have to look for all the Yoruba. And just like what Mr. Femi also said, keep learning. When we had to sit down to come up with Deku, Sunlo, Sunshe, repair, we had to sit down and learn it. And now that we know it, it has added to our vocabulary. So we keep learning, we keep growing, and we hope that one day somebody that is more skilled in this area can also come and do more work and work more on it. And so together we can achieve it.
Thank you so much, Ma. And I've been able to add those 3 words into my own dictionary. I look forward to using them. Sonlo, Deku, and Tunshe. Oh, yes, perfect. Thank you so much, Ma. So, Mr. Femi, would you like to add anything before we move on to the next thing? Okay, Mr. Femi's network is not so good, but I am really happy and I hope that we have all.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I can't.
The network is really breaking. We can't, okay. And now the network has cut him off. But yes, it has been really inspiring, and I hope that you've learned something, one or two things or three things that you are going to say, okay, well, from tonight or before even tomorrow, these are the new lifestyle changes that I want to do for the future that I want for a sustainable future. So thank you very much, Mr. Femi and Mrs. Jumoke. I am really happy to have done this. This is, I think, the best way to end Earth Day, in my own opinion. And thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel, for the opportunity. So now I'm just going to invite Mr. Emmanuel back up for a brief information session.
Okay, thank you very much, our amazing moderator. Thank you for the wonderful session, and we sincerely want to appreciate all the guests in person of Mr. Femi Oyeniyi and Mrs. Jumeke Oluwokere. I know I spoke with both of you this afternoon, and I understood your very busy schedule, and really appreciate the fact that you could make it on time, even before many of the participants joined the call. You're already on the call. Thank you so much. Really appreciate and the knowledge which you've shared tonight. We promise that we are going to sustain it and we keep using it over time to achieve a sustainable and resilient future for all. Right about now, I'll just quickly share one or two information in line to the activities of the ECO30 series. And I earlier said at the beginning of this session that we are on day 22, just 8 days to go. And it's been an amazing time all through the 30 days challenge. And for next week, we are going to be having the final session on Sunday. It's going to be on Sunday evening. It's not going to be on Saturday. And definitely, we are also going to be having some industry leaders who are going to be sharing their experience and their expertise, which is going to add up to our knowledge. And then secondly, I also want to, this I'm directing to the participants of the ECO30 challenge. Please, it's very important for you to fill the tracking and evaluation form. And this has been made so easy for you to do. It's either you fill it daily or you fill it weekly. Today is the last day of week 3. If you've not done any, if you've not tracked your reports and fill the evaluation form, please ensure you do that before the end of today, because the evaluators are on your responses and are evaluating as we speak. And finally, I'm also going to say this, that it's important we engage each other on the LinkedIn community. I know that we are all there, we keep posting, we keep sharing our experience and our practices, daily practices there. It's very important to keep connecting with each other. Let's endeavor to engage the post. Let's endeavor to comment, and let's endeavor to repost. Yeah, I believe it's a great platform for each and every one of us to learn, to unlearn, relearn, and keep learning over and over. And I believe it's been a great value for our time this evening. And we look forward to see each and every one of us at the final ceremony of the ECO30 Sustainable Living Challenge for the month of April. Thank you so much. Thank you once again, moderator. Thank you for the amazing session you led. And thank you for this wonderful occasion. And we sincerely want to thank all the participants for joining tonight. And we also thank you in advance that you are going to adopt and inculcate those lifestyle and those learnings you've had tonight to your daily practices. Our amazing guests, thank you so much for the wonderful time we had with you. We wish each and everyone a wonderful weekend and a prosperous week ahead.
Thank you so very much. Good night.
Thank you once again. Happy night rest to everyone. Thank you. Happy Night Rest, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Femi. It's been a wonderful session with you, and we look forward to more of it over and over again, sir.